Hello there! I had a really lively live stream last night. Deep down the rabbit hole on magnetism, and it's very beautiful what it is. It's so extremely simple, and all of the things that you take for granted in life, most of which I actually sacrificed to find a lot of the bigger secrets as to the nature of the universe. I could have done that and failed at it, but I didn't fail at it. Understanding what gravity is, importantly understanding what magnetism is, because 100% of the visible universe depends on one thing, and one thing only. The air inside the balloon of every atom, not that there's an air there because an atom is just an electrostatic dynamo, is due to one thing and one thing only. This is, by the way, the basis for the holographic universe. Also, too, tonight on the community board on my page, I'll post up a short little article that'll explain everything in, very simplex terms. I'm always thinking of new, creative, and divinely simple and ingenious ways to explain things very simply. Magnetism is fascinating. But interestingly enough, of course, the ancient Greeks and Pythagoreans didn't know this, and Tesla didn't know it. But, and of course, emanationism is a completely different principle. And this video is not about emanationism. That's the ancient metaphysics of the Pythagoreans, Advaita Vedanta, etc., etc., etc. It's this conjugate principle of the entire universe, and nothing more brilliantly explains it than that of what magnetism actually is. When I gave a lecture on magnetism, I had my notes on this little clipboard, and on the back of it I had some of these pictures that I took of the magnetic field. And, you got the nice little black hole there in the center of either quote-unquote pole of a magnet, and people always make that black hole analogy and comparison. And if you actually have the correct primer for the universe, or the legend, kind of like the legend on a map, you can understand all of what magnetism is. Magnetism, as I said, is the dielectric field. Very, very simple. And I like to simplify things in this video and make them really easy. In the past few lectures I've been giving, trying to find more simplex ways to explain things, and I've done so on that. Sorry, I'm still getting over this flu. Got a deep sounding voice, but I'm about 70% better, essentially so. You can actually hold up two identical objects and tell somebody, both of these are the same, but this one's been turned into a magnet, but this one's not a magnet. And it impresses people. Same way a 5-watt light bulb impresses nobody. I don't know if you've ever seen a 5-watt light bulb. I think like the light that heats up the wax inside this lava lamp is like 15 watts, so even a third of that. And it's a multiplicative field effect. A magnet, very simple, is a field laser. It's, of course, the nature of quality, not quantity. If you have two things that are 100% identical, what has changed between the two? We can look at anything through a magnifying glass, and of course the light, whether it's bouncing off of an object or actually passing through this magnifying glass, is the same. But if I bring it to a point, you could burn a hole in something. That impresses people. You're taking everything and you're bringing it to a point. In that case, the point is a multiplicative field effect. It's not additive anymore. It's not 1 plus 1 plus 1. It's more like 2 times 2 times 2. So you have a multiplicative effect, and that fascinates everybody. And I'd actually like to get into that in a different video. But in speaking simple terms here, there's a lot of different phenomena that are the same. Anti-gravity tech, zero-point energy tech, magnets, lasers, and magnifiers. They all have one thing in common. They're multiplicative field effects of being point source. Trust me, I'm going to make it a lot more simple here very, very quickly. Of a point source field. These are, of course, we could assume as make a simple statement that they're fountains of manifest energy. And the multiplicative field effect are like fountains of manifest energy. They're all too likewise, they have some sort of energy phenomena that they're taking a lot of and making it work in unison to achieve incredible things. Telescopes and parabolic satellite dishes, of course, likewise do the same thing, but as energy receivers, of course, rather than emitters. Yeah, it'd be no different than looking at either side of the bowl shaped of this hyperboloid of this hourglass shape and, you know, seeing that they're taking a lot of something and they're actually funneling it down into one point there. Hello. I'll edit that out of this video. This, of course, is what Victor Schauberger meant when he referred to mimicking nature and also to observing nature and imitating it. So, magnet and simple is a field laser. We have something that's qualitatively different, even though it is quantitatively identical. A guy I know, call him Super Magnet Man on YouTube. I think he's the only person on YouTube that has videos showing how magnets are made. He visits China and he shows it. Before they get turned into that thing we call a magnet, and I say, well, you know, what's a magnet? Well, it's got a magnetic field around. So, well, that's an accurate description, but you haven't explained what a magnet is. I mean, before it gets turned into that thing we call a magnet, it's 100% quantitatively identical. Same weight, same composition, same everything. It's kind of like, and I did this last night in live stream, I talked about two twins, right? Two identical twins, 100% genetically identical, right? Well, you take one and you give them advanced studies and you make their mind really sharp, and you know the other one, you know, you feed them Lucky Charms and you make them watch cartoons, right? You know, take 20 years of that, these two identical twins are still 100% quantitatively identical. Well, not really. The one that's been eating the cereal is fatter, genetically identical. But, you know, the one has got a really sharp mind and the other one doesn't know anything. So what's the distinction? You know, you've changed the quality of two things that are identical, inherent to what they are, as far as their structure, their composition, everything else. This is a multiplicative field phenomena. This is the reason why a 5-watt light bulb, kind of a perfect analogy, doesn't impress anybody, but I have 5-watt lasers. A 5-watt laser is dangerous. You know, it's a powerful device, especially like blue and ultraviolet 5-watt lasers. They're very, very dangerous and powerful. Well, 5 watts is 5 watts, right? Yes, we know. You know, on paper they are, but we have a different quality in the case of the laser. Yeah. A magnet is just a field laser. So this is the multiplicative field effect. All projective fields, of course, are holographic, i.e. unreal, and of course they're all curvilinear. Magnetism, of course, is the universe's hologram. Like I said, all atoms in volume, measured in picometers, are just a little electrostatic dynamos. And space, of course, is the volume, or the mirage of the mass. The magnetic field, of course, is outside of the magnet due to the multiplicative effect. A magnet no more emits a magnetic field than two people winking at each other, you know, from across the room, or emitting love. But if you go to Wikipedia or you read any of these journals, they'll actually say, magnetic field's emitting a magnetic, a magnet, is emitting a magnetic field. It's not emitting anything. A light bulb doesn't emit light. Well, sure it does. How dare you say that? How would you know anything? Where's your PhD in physics, Mr. Fat Bald Tattooed Guy? Light bulb doesn't emit anything. It creates a disturbance in the ether, that coaxial EMF, electromagnetic field, electromagnetic radiation that we call light, but it's not an emission. It's a disturbance of a medium. The multiplicative field effect in the creation of a magnet, once it's a magnet, causes an effect outside of the magnet, which is the only reason anybody's fascinated by a magnet. Of course, there's endless billions of uses and countless things that use magnets. Is the field effect that is ab extra to the object itself. Well, here we have the magnet, but what's really fascinating is it's got this invisible field around it. Of course, no branch of science ever defined the term field, I will remind you. But it's not an emission. The multiplicative field effect, the fact that it is multiplicative, causes a disturbance in the ether. That point source field, being multiplicative, generates the magnetic field we find so fascinating. And this, of course, is a qualitative difference between the pre-magnet and the post-magnet, both of which are 100% identical. Just like the magnifying glass, you're going to have a thick piece of sheet glass, which we could actually take. It would take a lot of work to do that, and of course it would be incredibly dumb. Actually, some magnifying glasses are made that way. They'll actually heat the glass up to melting, and they'll press it between a mold, and now we have two convex surfaces on both sides. And now, instead of a thick piece of sheet glass that light will pass through, we've molded it and changed the quality of the same glass such that, now it'll burn a hole in the table or set something on fire, for example. So in the pre-magnet, we'd have the flat glass, a thick piece. Mold it, you change it to convex on either side, and now we can burn holes in things. Now it's fascinating. Before we had boring glass, and now we have something to burn a hole through something. Before we had this samarium cobalt or ferrite slug or neodymium iron boron slug, which is what they are. They're ceramic slugs, which are usually coated in nickel or coated in chromium. And now we put it in a special machine that causes a multiplicative field effect where all the atoms are working in unison. We can think of the center of the plane of inertia between two magnifiers concentrating on one point between the two, but instead, of course, of a magnifying glass burning something up, they're actually draining the energy out. So if we had another magnifier down here and they're both concentrated at the singular point, instead of burning something up or concentrating energy, we'd be, in the case of the magnetic field, we'd be draining energy. So my simple analogy that people seem to understand, because everybody, at least normal people anyway, take a shower every day, is the shower/drain water analogy. We have the shower water coming out of the shower head, and we have the water going down the drain. One, of course, is force, and the other one is inertia. They're both the same water, right? But we don't take a shower in the drain water. We take a shower underneath the pressurized water coming out of the shower head. And, of course, the same water going back down the drain. And, of course, you can't take that analogy too far in the case of our magnetic field. The magnetic field is draining back to the point of inertia right here. And, of course, we have a plane of inertia that exists right around here. By the way, the negative image of a hyperboloid is a torus, and the negative image of a torus is a hyperboloid. This conjugate geometry of the universe defines everything in the universe. Magnetic attraction also, too, does not exist. Magnetism would be analogous to the shower head, of course not the drain. The drains, of course, are accelerating towards one another. In the case of our perfect analogy, of course I can't make a perfect analogy using this hourglass where everything is draining right here to a null point. Black holes, of course, are supermassive dielectric sinks, the nature by which the precession generates enormous EMF in the form of hydrogen. Geomagnetic precession. A true zero-point energy device, you can actually pull it up, type in astrophysical jets or galactic jets. These black holes are emitting at the axes of geomagnetic precession around same millions and millions and millions and millions, trillions actually, I take that back, tons of hydrogen, as I proved in the reconciliation between light and matter, which I discovered many, many years ago. Is that's all fundamental matter is. All atoms are compounded hydrogen. And what's hydrogen? But maximum rate of induction EMF, electromagnetic radiation, way above that of gamma radiation. We have hydrogen. This was discovered like 2.5 years ago. They took constructive interference between two super high power lasers, and they found out it generated matter. It means super, super high energy light. You have something way above gamma radiation. You have stable light. I humorously call it hard light. It's hydrogen. It's the reason why these galactic jets at the centers being emitted from the centers of these black holes are emitting out trillions of tons of hydrogen. This is nature's own free energy device. It's not actually regurgitating the matter, spitting out hydrogen as some have interpreted. The actual form of that, due to the fact that it's supermassive, is generating its own free energy. And the free energy it's generating is mega intensive, super high energy electromagnetic radiation, which of course is hydrogen. Makes things simple, makes Mother Nature really simple, in fact. The rest is the whole. In the case of our donut, and people can't wrap their brains around that. I don't know if I have my little Toroflex here. It doesn't make any sense. The donut is, of course, the force, is the matter, and the rest is that neat little hole right there in the center where nothing is. If I actually bring it to that point, you can see that little hourglass shape right there in the middle where nothing is. The donut, and of course that makes no sense if you think of a conventional donut. Huh? The donut is generated from the hole, and the donut returns back to the hole. There's actually a program, a software program I used to have it. You could inverse geometries. It would actually take geometries and you could invert them to whatever degree. If you took the complete inversion of a torus, you end up with a hyperboloid. And if you actually inverse a hyperboloid, of course you end back at the torus again. Everybody loves to say the word vortex, but of course a vortex is just nothing other than a half a torus. A vortex, too, of course, is no different than saying a drain. The geomagnetic precession is just like two ends of a tornado swirling around with their ends terminating in or at counter space. We could say antispatial. We could actually call it ground. You know that neat little thing they call it an electrical ground? Lightning is a discharge into counter space. Electricity always wants to ground itself. In the case of an electrical circuit, we have to find the ground. Well, the ground is no different than referring to where's the drain in the bathtub. You know, where's the water? You know, it's dark. You know, you can't see the drain. It's like, where's the ground at? In the system of the shower head and the flowing water and the draining water, we have to have a ground somewhere. Well, all of nature is a ground. This is nature's ground right here. Don't take this analogy too far. The center of the torus is the drain, is the ground. All of the universe is completely holographic. Now the drain is right there in the center. The center of the torus, or the center of our little donut. It's kind of hard to hold this in one shape with two hands. Not very easy, but right there in the middle. Well, there's nothing there. There's no thing there. Not a thing is not nothing. It means no phenomena is there and present. So this plane of inertia, and everybody asks what it is the fight between the centrifugal divergent toroidal geometry, that is magnetism, and the centripetal convergent inertia and acceleration, the lowest pressure between those two fighting vectors, one spatial, one antispatial. One force in motion, another one in inertia and acceleration. That's the lowest pressure zone that exists between both, or the fight between the force vectors of the magnetic and the dielectric. This is a quote from Charles Proteus Steinmetz's Electrical Discharges, Waves, and Impulses. In electric circuits containing energy stored in the magnetic and in the dielectric, the charge and the amount of stored energy occurs by a series of changes from the magnetic to the dielectric and back again from the dielectric to the magnetic stored energy. This was printed in 1917. Same book. The magnetic and the dielectric field of the conductors, in the case of an electrical circuit, are both included in the term electric field, and the two are the components of the electric field. Now, this is not my opinion, this is a fact. Charles Proteus Steinmetz was way more intelligent than Nikola Tesla. Some of his equations are like 30 pages long. True genius. He actually perfected Nikola Tesla's AC generator invention. It wasn't working until he perfected it, laminated steel and some other things. His books are phenomenal. He's a real genius. He said over 100 years ago, I think it's 109 years ago, that in his time, 109 years ago, he wrote in this book that people in that time, 110 plus years ago, were completely confused. They didn't understand what electricity was, because electricity is not a thing. Electricity is two things working as one. That thing we call the electric field, or the electric circuit, is two things, magnetism and dielectricity. Two things operating as one. Human beings are so confused We kind of like children that are fascinated by a puppet show. They don't see the puppet masters, behind the puppets pulling the strings. Each quote-unquote side of a magnet has two fields on it. The centrifugal edge, which is where the magnetism is at, that would be our shower head. And right there in the center, just like in here, these little pictures, we got this neat little drain, yeah? Here we have the shower head on one side, here we have the shower head on another side, here we have the drain on one side, here we have the drain on another side. Magnetic attraction doesn't exist at all. Magnetism's that shower head. It's not the drain. I've been saying this since many, many years ago when I discovered it and wrote about it in my book. Magnetic attraction doesn't exist. Magnetic attraction can't exist. The magnetic fields are not accelerating towards one another. The holes, if you will, or the drains where the dielectric portals are. The erasure of space. If you want to know what dielectricity is, because Dollard said this too. He said lightning is a lateral discharge into counter space. If you actually watch lightning strikes in ultra high speed and then play them back in slow-mo, you can actually see them draining. They actually pulse and they get weaker and weaker. They're actually discharges into counter space. No, that's not true. Lightning strikes from cloud to ground. We all know that. Lightning starts up here in the clouds and it strikes down. Well, observationally, human beings have thought that for millennia. Zeus throwing his lightning bolts from sky to ground. That's actually not not what is occurring. It's the lateral discharge or desaturation from capacitance to discharge. And that's no different than saying a ground discharge into counter space. What do you think an energy discharge does? Why do you think a ground is so important? Instead of saying counter space or anti-spatial, I could just use the electrical terminology, ground. In the case of electricity, and any electrician will tell you this, in the case of electricity, it's really, really important to know where the ground is. And you're messing with electrical circuits in a house and wiring it up, don't make yourself the ground, because then, the electricity will run through you and then you'll have some serious problems. It's all about ground. I've been using words like counter space and anti-spatial, inertia and acceleration, and centripetal, all of which are 100% accurate. But if you want me to use the word ground, I'll use that too. Nature is so extremely simple. Magnetic attraction does not exist. No such thing as magnetic attraction. This is also too from Charles Proteus Steinmetz from the same book. Many textbooks speak on the electrical charge on the conductor and the energy stored by them without consideration that the dielectric energy is not on the surface of the conductors but existing between the space outside of the conductor, just as also too is the magnetic energy. Magnetism, by the way, is the amperage, as dielectricity is the voltage. Voltage is not the dangerous stuff you got to watch out for. It kind of is, but not really. That's voltage, is dielectricity. It's the amperage. Dielectricity is how deep the needle penetrates. It's like, well, you can take a needle and pass it from here to here, and it's like, oh, that hurts, a little bit of a problem. Magnetism would be the width of that needle. Like, let's take a needle that's about the size of a broomstick, and then now pass it from here to here. Now you got real problems. Take a needle, poke it. Actually, fakirs and entities in India, they'll actually take a really long needle and pass it from here to here. It's like, no big deal. You see them, I've seen these street carnivals, or not carnivals, these religious fests. The needle goes from here to here. Okay, now, now imagine doing that with a broomstick. Big problem. I'm trying to draw an analogy between the magnetic and the dielectric, and amperage and voltage. All of this stuff is really simple if you can actually see it for what it is and how it is. I love that shower and drain analogy, and it seems to clear things up for people. And also, too, knowing that these things are joined at the hip. And I have an article that I'm posting tonight, short and sweet, but very, very simple, in the community forum on the holographic universe, because that's what magnetism is projective geometry. You know, say this is completely thin to the point of not being able to see anything, you know, which of course it's not. It still has some mass and some width. Not a perfect analogy, but all of a sudden we have a beautiful holographic mass of magnitude and volume. The toroidal magnetic field. That's that three-dimensional force vector, excuse me, that we call the magnetic field. This is the yin and the yang of the entire universe. It's not my quote, it is, that magnetism is a dielectric field, but that's what it is. It's like saying ice is the cold field of water. But this multiplicative field phenomena, such as anti-gravity tag, zero-point energy, magnets, lasers, and magnifiers, they all have that in common, that they're all point source field fountains of manifesting energy. These are the things that we're fascinated by. This is the basis of all really amazing patents and technology, and also, too, for future technology. There's nobody on YouTube talking about zero-point multiplicative field phenomena. People talk about zero-point energy, they do, but I'm talking about point source field phenomena. This is the basis of me trying to build that device once I get those pyramidal magnets in, which you should be 2.5 weeks away yet still, but they're on their way, so. Magnets don't emit anything any more than a light bulb emits anything. But everybody on this earth thinks that. Well, a light bulb emits light. Magnets emit magnetism. You mean the magnetic field? That's right, that's right. Well, you never defined a field. And a magnet is not emitting anything. But since it's a multiplicative field phenomena with point source field incommensurability, where everything is operating in unison as one, it is influencing the medium outside of that magnet. That, of course, being the ether. That's all a field is anyway, of course, is an ether perturbation modality. I hope I've made this as simple as possible. I mean, I really have, and I continue to endeavor to do so. And people have been very pleased in the live streams recently and how I've actually simplified it. And, you know, that I love simplifying things so that people can see things as they truly are. Thank you so much for watching. Sorry I'm still recovering from, but mostly over my flu. If you like these videos, any donation is always greatly, warmly welcome. I greatly appreciate it. More than you know. Thank you very much. And send me any emails if you have any questions. All my books and articles that I write are for free. I hope you appreciate that. And I hope you have a lovely week. Thank you so much.